You want to know why he's doing this to Aron Ra? Well, take a listen.
All rocks are non-theist. Would you agree? Well,
No.
You can only be in one of two sets. Either you're in the set of theism.
I thought Aron Ra... An argument is happening out on Twitter, the cesspool of the internet, don't forget that. And I want to make a point about it. For the sake of this demonstration, we will have to set a few conditions and follow them. Condition 1, we only have the information that is shared in this argument on Twitter. We're going to be the observer that will take in the interaction, so we have to forget what we already know about a man named Aron Ra and the others that are arguing. But just in case you don't have any knowledge to forget, let me introduce you to the man. Aron is an internet philosopher, YouTuber, and atheist speaker with 270,000 subscribers. Okay, you're caught up. Just kidding. I do like Aron, and I've watched many of his videos, and even though I don't agree with everything he says, I definitely am a fan, especially of his debates. He's very good on the fly in a discussion, as you're about to see. Forget what I just told you. You just know that Aron is on Twitter. Here's a tweet for you. Steven says, "A new place in my hierarchy of dumb. Number 1, flatties. Number 2, anti-vax." I'm going to try to say it with as censored as I can. You know that algorithm. Number 3, anti-mask. Number 4, YEC, Young Earth Creationists. 5, creationists. 6, reality TV watchers. And by the way, Steven, I take offense to that. There's some good reality TV, and then there's some bad. Number 7, people who argue rocks are atheists. Now for number 7, you've got to pay close attention. The word atheists has an S on it, which is bad grammar. People who argue rocks are atheists. Should be atheist. 8, anyone having anything to do with Good Burger. I believe that is a Keenan and Kel joke, or maybe I'm just a boomer. 9, people who say anywho. Aron Ra replies to this list, and he says, rocks are atheist, period. Note the period at the end. No, I'm not going to add a joke here, even though I should. So any person stumbling across this thread will quickly notice a few things. That 1, the original tweet is a bit of a troll. The list, it's silly, it's funny. Obviously, a couple things on the list aren't serious entries into the hierarchy of dumb, but still, it's pretty good. Hey, that's pretty good. Though, for sure, Aron Ra is not making a claim here. Now, remember earlier when I told you we were going off of what we see in the thread. So we can't go and ask Aron if he really believes rocks are atheist. We can't go into his content to dig through and try to find out what he thinks. It'll ruin the point of this video and it'll ruin the fun. But if you think that Aron Ra responding here is making a claim, then you'd have to be being a little dishonest, if not a lot dishonest. Here's why. Aron is obviously correcting somebody's grammar. The period does a lot for this tweet, but also, for all we know, he could have been joking. You know, joking, that thing that locals don't know how to do. Either way, any intelligent or even neutral person at this point wouldn't think that Aron was being serious or making a claim. If I was, I wish he would have capitalized R. A-R-E, capitalized it. It would have added some emphasis on the sentence, enough to show us that he was arguing against the list. I don't believe he was arguing against the list, though. I have to be smart enough to say if he was arguing against the list, then he would have typed more, or he would have actually made an argument. So at this point, what do you think? Is he jumping in to boom out and scream and claim that rocks are atheist in reality? And that the list is wrong and stuff? Or is he trolling the lister and maybe making a joke? Or is he just correcting the statement up top because it used an S on the end of the word atheist and it shouldn't have? Well, this was discussed after a group of people on the internet decided to attack Aron Ra over this interaction and even write a blog and even go live and congratulate people that responded to Aron even though they were obviously being non non-skeptical, and really dumb. Let's start with this thread. The one we're looking at. Let's start with that thread. After Aron states that rocks are atheists. Now, he didn't make a claim, he didn't make the statement, he just wrote these things in Twitter. Rocks are atheists, period. You get how that doesn't mean that he believes that, right? You get that, don't you? Because there's a lot of people out there, well, they all follow one specific person, that they all think it does mean that he believes that. Anyway, somebody comes in to argue against rocks being atheist. Aron says, then they definitely lack theism, don't they? So can we now be fully convinced that Ra is making the argument that rocks are atheist? I still don't know. For all I know, Ra could be making the point that people make when making the argument to show how dumb the argument is. This is the problem of Twitter. It lacks any and all context on purpose. I say this all the time, but due to the fact that Twitter is designed how it is, only being able to use a few sentences to type anything, Twitter is made for the short form. Most people are smart enough not to take people seriously on Twitter unless they have a good reason to. Other networks like YouTube, and I guess you could make an argument for Facebook since there you can type as much as you want, but like I said, YouTube, Facebook, others, they aren't short form. And you can stick with blaming somebody for not providing more context. You can blame them for that. They have the option, right? On Twitter, that is taken away to keep things short and pithy. Before you can make a claim that Aron made a claim, if you're on Twitter, at least you should probably check. Because again, it would be very easy to say that Aron is arguing that rocks are atheists, that he actually believes it, that in his head, anything out there that doesn't believe in God, even if they cannot believe in anything at all, somehow is an atheist. But more than likely, due to the absurdity of this statement and due to Aron having argued against this type of thing in the past, I know we aren't supposed to consider that here in this thought experiment. I just can't, at this time, get myself fully there. I guess it could be possible, but this whole conversation sounds so much like Ra is joking or being silly that I can't get there though. Let's keep going. Then they definitely lack theism, don't they? Says Ra, and then the original poster comes in. The OP is original poster. And he comes in with other things rocks lack. Empathy, so they must be psychopaths. Genitals, so they must self-replicate. Spines, so they must be invertebrates. Brains, so they must be Trump supporters. Which is a good point against this statement, against the rocks thing, right? And as it goes down, other people jump in and do a bit of a back and forth. This all ends with the OP claiming that, according to Aron Ra, trees, yes, they would be atheist. But then Aron comes in finally with an answer. Aron states, they logically have to be. Atheism is a lack of belief. Beliefs have to be learned and adopted from a prior state of non-belief, the default position. Breaking this down, it's pretty obvious to me. Aron knows that trees and rocks can't be theists or atheists. But here on Twitter, I says, see, the thing about this last statement from Aron is it just doesn't add up. OMGZ, it sounds to me like Aron wasn't making a claim earlier. He was just either correcting the sentence as most people think, or as I think he was jumping in with a silly little quip. Now, if I click Aron's first statement, there is a lot more being said than was shown before. I'll center in on things Aron Ra said like this. So, replying to Aron Ra and Steve Dunham-Bonham, rocks lack the desire for government to be involved in the economy, therefore they are libertarian. Aron Ra comes back and says that explains a lot. At this point, my brain exclaims, ha! He is joking, just like I thought. But then Aron makes this response. So what criteria must be met before you admit that someone or something still lacks theism? Well, reading that, it seems like Aron is making the argument at least. So now we can believe that he's making the claim, right? No. There are many reasons somebody would make a certain argument but not be making the claim. Like if I walked up to you and said, hey, the earth is flat, and you replied, that's dumb, why would you say that? And then I said, give me one good reason why it's not flat. And you came back with a good reason. And then I say, good job. You passed the test. I was making an argument in a silly way there with a bit of a joke tied to it. but not believing the claim of the argument. This is why Twitter is by design a cesspool. Only though, when people take it seriously now, I wanted to show you all the different ways that a skeptical and a logical brain would break down this type of Twitter conversation. Because honestly, while I know some people do give each poster the benefit of the doubt here on the cesspool, I also know that some people take Twitter seriously, and others even will use Twitter to try and make somebody make a claim so that they can make fun or argue, which by the way is the definition of trolling. In case you don't know, sea lioning is also trolling. It's a bit different. Sea lioning is where you do the same thing I just said, but you try to keep yourself looking like the good guy, asking troll questions, never making an argument or being fair, with the intent of your questions to cause a reaction from the person you're talking to so that they will come back and say something that you can use to make you seem like a victim. Last night on my live stream, I gave a great breakdown of a Twitter sea lion playing that role and even having their friends jump in to help them, which is a common tactic of this boomer sea lion, if you didn't know, the one that's doing this to Aron anyway. But that is all the subject of another video, so let's move on because I have a shocking surprise for all of you. A reveal, if you will. Aron Ra never made the claim that atheists are rocks, and I can prove it right now. Rocks have dispositions about whether it's true that the deity exists. Stephen Hoyt is a Twitter troll under the employ of a certain ex-co-host of Non Sequitur Show. He said this to Aron Ra: "I can't believe you're still beating this drum." Aron Ra comes back and says, "You can't believe that I'm not saying what you say I still am?" I gotta read that again. Aron Ra responds and says, "You can't believe that I'm not saying what you still say I am?" Obviously, this proves that Aron Ra never made the claim in the first place, and these guys are just prescribing it to him so they can make some type of attack and argument for content. This is proof that Ra never made the claim to start with. I've already gone over the slew of things that Ra was doing with the response he made, but the truth is, it was so obvious that he wasn't making the claim the whole time that I didn't have to do this video. Though it's a very good exercise because you get buttloads of boomers constantly taking anything that anyone says on Twitter and taking it the way that they want to, then running around acting like they are the best arguer ever and the smartest, most achieved person in the room. But in reality, they aren't. If you have to make your opponent's arguments for them, you are going to win every time because you're going to construct the argument in your favor, which is obviously what he's been going on here, and it's what his friends do too. Think about this. The whole time this has gone on, person who overreacted and didn't even bother to read what was said initially neglected to ask Aron Ra if he was even making the claim or if he was joking. Now, if this tweet was said in person to Ra and he responded, due to the tone of his voice and the manner in which he spoke, it would be easy to understand that he wasn't making the claim. Now, I want to remind you that it was very easy to understand that he wasn't making the claim, just so that's not forgotten here. Because people that act like this on Twitter are not skeptics. They are the opposite of skeptics. How can you be skeptical when it never even crossed your mind that the man was either correcting the spelling error of the OP or just joking? Or he could have been adding to the list himself. He could have been telling you what part of the list he most agreed with, for God's sakes. And when he noticed people were acting like idiots, he probably just poked them on. Even though we haven't even got to the greatest point in all of this, there's a blog out there that actually takes what Aron said as serious, and we should look at it. Also, there are a couple YouTube creators that run around pretending to be skeptics and pretending to be great debaters that have been sea lioning and gish galloping about this for a week or more. I just want to make sure you know how stupid they have looked this whole time, and let's go jump over to that blog and take a look. Now, this is where this whole situation is going to get very interesting. This is UNIRock, an account that popped up not long ago. I think just within the last few days it was created, maybe 5 days, I don't know. Though very much since a certain boomer has been attacking Aron Ra. The people whom this account follows and follow him include many people who are crazy supporters of McRae. an account just pops up out of nowhere and supporters of McRae jump in, that's pretty strange, right? Now, if we look at the actual accounts that are sharing this blog or that wrote this blog, it's right here. Well, weird. Why is this there from August 9th, just a couple days ago? Anyone wanting to help me get a shout out this weekend, I have to accept that I really, really suck. Maybe those who follow me can retweet this and see if anyone's interested in following me for lay philosophy and lay science. And what's right above this? The Rocking Atheism blog post attacking Aron Ra. What's right above this? The sock account that I just showed you that has mysteriously followed one of his ardent followers. I want to make the point that not only are they sea lions, like I scientifically proved last night, they use other forms of trolling like making dummy Twitter accounts to mock. They did this to Katie Joy, Kyle Curtis. Well, they've done it to every single person that this guy has ever gotten angry at. It fits his complete modus operandi. Though, now that you know that about the people who have been sharing this blog, and now you know that the same tactics that have been used against every one of his enemies are being mimicked and used against Aron Ra, now you can see why this blog has been written like it has. Well, you want to know why he's doing this to Aron Ra, why he's using the rocks are atheist argument against Aron, even though Aron didn't even make the claim? Well, take a listen, because he made this claim years ago, and Nate Brody destroyed him and exposed him for it. This is one of the things that made old McBoomer hate Nate Brody, who also had people mimicking him start doing that to him on Twitter when Steve first got mad at him. Are you a troll? Do you run a troll farm? Are you employing a troll farm against Aron Ra? Yes, you are. Now let's embarrass you greatly.
So in this particular case, the way I'm using it, all rocks are non-theist. Would you agree? Well,
no.
You can only be in one of two sets. Either you're in the set of theism.
I thought Aron Ra was a bad guy for saying that rocks are theists, or atheists, or agnostic. Wait, are you saying that that was your original argument up until you blocked Brody for calling you out on it? Let's hear Brody call you out on it.
No, because you're talking about a person.
No, forget Bob, forget the person. Hang on, Bob, listen to me. Forget the person.
No. See,
you have two sets.
That's the whole thing.
You have two sets.
No, you can't forget it. The whole thing is based. No, but you can't forget it. The whole thing is based on belief.
Okay, so
believe, so they can't be in that set.
So they're not non-theist either?
No, rocks cannot be in the. You can't count rocks at all in either set.
Then you don't know what a dichotomy is.
So you see what
before Nate finishes, Aron Ra, I hope to God you see this video, because this is why they're coming at you. He got embarrassed so long ago. He's carried that butthurt for years. And when he saw you correct the grammar or troll or just list that on the list, this is why he had his followers go at you. Because years ago, Nate did this to him.
I mean, Steve simply doesn't understand what a category error is. And he's making it and trying to defend against it. So the counter to Steve's argument was simple. Atheism as a lack of belief is a psychological state. Rocks can't have psychological states, or
goes into great detail and does such a good job in this series. Please make sure you go see it. I have tweeted this out with the timestamp for you. I just want to carry the point from my live stream last night into this video, and then we'll get back to the blog. This guy is a troll. He has disguised himself as a philosopher and as all the other things he pretends to be, like a YouTuber and a Twitter user. And in reality, he's none of the things he says he is. He just uses sea lioning and troll tactics to gain followers and get attention. Now let's finish proving this and shutting them down. A discussion involving Aron Ra centered around the definition of atheism blew up on Twitter for the other day. Generally, it's not a discussion I tend to get involved in. We read that. It's not the first time I've heard this claim, of course. Let's see if this person who has been retweeting and advertising for that guy you just heard make that horrible argument, you know, that was somebody making the argument that rocks are either atheist or theist or agnostic, not Aron Ra putting out that tweet, though. Is he going to list Steve McRae on here as a crazy pusher of this theory, as Steve was for years until Nate exposed him? Or is he not? Let's see. There are other atheists that have made the claim, ranging from people in Facebook groups to YouTubers like Bionic Dance. No. You're supposed to put Steve McRae there. This time around, though, it was a slightly bigger name than those that I have previously seen argue this position. a name with a lot more influence in the atheist community, as could be seen by some of the responses in various threads and tweets that spawned from the original claim. Where is his name? Why is Aron's name here for a tweet where he didn't even make the positive claim, but he lacks McCrae's name when he's been advertising and trolling for McCrae? Oh well, let's just keep going, because this is a horrible article. Not only is the grammar bad, the sentence structure bad, the paragraph structure bad, but the point carried through is horrible. Let me prove it to you. The name being Aron Ra. It is the fact that caused me to feel like it's important to respond to the claim and some of the arguments that were made. This is you sea lioning. You haven't really made a point yet. I don't know if you're going to, but either way, you're sea lioning. You're trying to make it seem like you're just this innocent guy, and Aron did this and you wanted to ask some questions and make some points, but you're straw manning the poor dude. And there are so many other fallacies that you are committing here. Though there are things you're doing that aren't even considered fallacies, like neglecting to add the information that the person you're advertising and the person that organized this attack against Aron, McCrae, is the guy who was pushing this argument so hard. That's pretty important to this whole thing. Shouldn't it be mentioned? I'll help you out, my guy. Defining atheism. One of the problems surrounding this rock theist discussion, you know, I kind of like that. Maybe I should change my YouTube name to that, is the exclusivity claim made by those that promote the lacktheism position to the definition of atheism. Aron Ra makes a similar claim of exclusivity. Ra 2019. What right do you have to claim that Aron Ra is a rock theist? Well, even if he is a rock theist, you need to show it to me before I can let any of this sink in. If you're out on Twitter or you're reading these blogs or you're going around the internet and you believe what someone's putting out and they don't do what I just did, which is actually pull a clip proving who really believed this and said this, then you should not believe it. It's one thing, a lack of belief in gods. Atheism is not an affirmative belief that there are no God, nor does it answer any other question about what a person believes. It's simply a rejection of assertion that there are gods. Atheism is too often defined incorrectly as a belief system. To be clear, atheism is not a belief system in gods or a denial of God. It is a lack of belief in gods. Well, I agree. I get that. That's pretty good, you know, to the point here. Atheism is not a belief system, nor is it a religion. Okay. But that doesn't help us with what you cited, though. So let's check the next one. Atheism and Agnosticism, the Stanford Encyclopedia. Okay, so he links to the Stanford Encyclopedia, which I don't know why. What does this matter? Okay, what are you... I think because Aron Ra stated that he read that, you're linking to it. I thought you were going to show me how he believes that rocks are atheists. I need to see Aron Ra saying that rocks are atheists or claiming that rocks are atheists, because he didn't do that on Twitter. I had an associate who's a self-prescribed philosopher. Oh, he links to when he owned Steve McCrae. See, some of you were probably about to say, you're bringing Steve McCrae into this, Uni. I'm not. I simply was going to show you this sea lioning going on Twitter against Aron Ra. But then I thought to myself, you know, we might as well hit that blog too. But since he linked this, we better take a look at it. You just said that Aron Ra is a lacktheist and rock theist. But Aron Ra did not make that claim in that Twitter thread. And in your blog and all over the Twitter thread, I can't find a single place that shows me Aron Ra making the argument that you're claiming that he's making about rocks. 2, rocks have disposition about whether or not he's true that deity exists. I can't believe you're still beating this drum. And basically, this Stephen Hoyt person, you know, let's click it. Let's see if this person was sent to troll for Steve McCrae or not. Okay, nothing there. Oh, wow, this isn't a... Oh, wait, yeah, it is. He is a Steve McCrae sycophant. Look at all that. Steve McCrae, damn. Crazy town, dude. It's almost like Steve told all of you to go do this to Aron Ra, and you all did it because you're a bunch of sheep. You're not skeptics. You don't know how to think for yourself, and you do what you're told. Though, I can prove that Aron Ra did not make the claim, because here, when finally he's faced with somebody saying he's beating a drum that rocks are atheist, he says, you can't believe that I'm not saying what you still say I am. He's saying I didn't say what you said I'm saying. And the only person who can tell us to whether or not Aron Ra made the claim is Aron Ra. The point of this video is to show you that these guys, the ones that follow Steve and Steve, are trolls. And that this is the tactic they use to get views and to get clicks and to get people incited to rally around them when nothing else is going on or working for them when it comes to the views and clicks they want. We're not done though, because Aron Ra already exposed Steve McRae back on June 21st of 2019 with this, and we've never taken a good look at it. This is Aron Ra's response to Steve attacking him and going crazy on him. You notice that date? June 21st of 2019 is when Aron Ra was done with Steve completely and wrote his last response to him. In July of 2019 is when Steve decided to start attacking Haiti Joy Paulson. So crazy interesting. Ra says this: I had an associate who is a self-prescribed philosopher, active in the atheist community. However, he likes to antagonize other unbelievers by saying that he never believed in a God, but that he was never an atheist. He's an agnostic. From here on, I will refer to him as Mr. Agnostic because he's made this his identity, as well as the most unreasonable and annoying aspect of his character. Ra, I've got to disagree. It's a very annoying aspect of his character, but the most annoying aspect of his character is the SH and SA that he puts against women and the trolling that he uses against men every time he interacts with anybody online. Though, I and a myriad of others have repeatedly pointed out that dictionaries typically say that, quote, atheist refers to someone who does not believe in the existence of God or any gods, and an agnostic refers to somebody who doesn't know whether there is a God or even if a such thing is knowable. Clearly, then, agnostic answers a different question. Saying that you don't know whether any God exists doesn't tell me whether or not you believe there is one. I've had a few people say that, quote, well, I believe there's something, implying that it might be a God. Theism is a religious belief in some form of a deity. Most theists are Gnostic, in the sense that they confuse belief with knowledge, claiming that they know for a fact that God is real, even though there's no way anyone can honestly claim to know that. And Aron, I agree. I think this is a great article. This article is understandable. This article is written well. This article makes sense. Oh, I'm loving it. Theism is a religious belief in some form of deity. Most theists are Gnostic in the sense they confuse belief with knowledge, claiming that they know for a fact that God is real, even though there's no way anyone can honestly claim to know that. That is such a good sentence that I can't highlight it. Faith is pretending to know things that you don't know. And they're really just asserting how they believe that very strongly. Agnostic theists are the minority, saying they believe in one or more gods, but who is to say what God is, or even what a God is? Atheists tend to be the opposite distribution, with the majority being agnostic. Thomas Huxley invented the word agnostic in 1869. He said, quote, it simply means that a man shall not say he knows or believes that which he has no scientific grounds for professing to know or believe. That this does not allow an agnostic to deny that lacking a belief in a God means that they are actually an atheist. Exactly. Agnostics are atheists. They're just under the category of atheist. To do anything else is to just argue semantics like your opponent, Aron, has been doing for years, disguising arguing semantics as some type of good argument. Who else does that? Oh, flatties, religious extremists. The reason Huxley invented that word was that he was irritated with theists saying that they knew that God existed and atheists countering with the equal conviction that no, he doesn't. Huxley wanted to invent a middle-of-the-road position on the fence between them, but the fact is that you're either convinced that there is a God or you're not convinced of that. There is no possible middle ground between those two. So there's no way to disassociate from both sides and pretend to be superior to either one, the way so many centrists want to do. And yes, we are talking about a sea lion booming centrist in the person opposing Aron Ra. Centrists will never tell you their opinion. They'll never give you their side, even in a debate. Has that happened recently? And they don't do that because they're worried that they're going to offend a viewer. They're worried. They're so concerned about the people that like them, watch them, give them money, or whatever those people do for them, that if they give an opinion on something, they're going to scare away the people that don't agree with that opinion. So they play as centrist as possible. In that way, they can maximize the amount of people who won't leave them. It's kind of a very beta thing, a very soy-based thing. Though, unless you pretend that atheism only means the belief or knowledge that no gods exist, which Mr. Agnostic does. Let's read that again. Unless you pretend that atheism only means the belief or knowledge that no gods exist, which he does, Mr. Agnostic. He says he doesn't have a belief in God, but that he doesn't have a belief that there isn't a God either, and as if that creates a different category apart from atheist. Now, I don't care what he wants to say about himself. What matters is how he's trying to redefine the rest of our identities. He insists that a lack of belief in God is agnostic, not atheist, or that those who lack belief in God should be called non-theist, as if it means something different from atheist. It doesn't. They both mean exactly the same thing, but he wants it to be atheist that must have a belief that there is no deity, and that consequently they must also meet the burden of proof to justify justify that belief. So do you understand what Mr. Raw is saying? Because I know that Mr. Agnostic does this. He's trying to say that atheists can only be those people who say that they know that God doesn't exist, because once he narrows that down, he can come at you and say, haha, you can't prove that God doesn't exist. It's a very shitty tactic that he convinces a lot of people of. At one time, he'd even convinced me of it. It was I'm talking in a matter of days before I realized his game. The issue here is that Aron called him out. He did it succinctly. He got the point across, and the way he wrote it, just about anybody can understand. Let's try to go really quick, though, through the rest. He's part of the Atheist Out program, trying to raise our political influence as a demographic by countering this very propaganda that we used to hear only from religious apologists. Well, weird now. Isn't that crazy? Mr. Agnostic is actually teamed up with religious apologists recently. Oh my goodness, it's almost like he's attacking Aron for a reason. Some type of reason against Aron doing just this. Countering this very propaganda that we used to hear from religious apologists, because Aron is trying to raise political influence as a demographic. So Aron's basically trying to gain respect. Look, you lack the belief, so you shouldn't have any type of notice for this program, notice for this census, notice for this thing. And Aron's saying we are people. Just because we lack a belief does not mean that we are anything bad whatsoever, and we should be categorized and gain every benefit that everybody else gains. And I agree with Aron Ra, and I don't know why you wouldn't either, especially if you're an atheist. Though, the problem is that hearing such distortion for decades has worked. Most theists don't identify as such because they don't realize what the label really means. Mr. Agnostic has a small following, and they're hurting as a movement by helping the apologists keep our numbers reported much lower than they really are. Now, take this into account. This was written back last year in June. What has he done since then? Teamed up with one Christian apologist and then teamed up with another to start doing a show. And do you know that in the newsletter, the newsletter that show Agree to Argue sends out, they say that each one of their shows costs $3,000 per episode, and they're asking that from their church. And the only reason I think they put Mr. Agnostic on there is so that he could pick the worst atheist to make atheists look as dumb as possible in front of that religious group. But you can make up your own mind. I wouldn't admit and take advantage, of course, but it wouldn't undermine virtually all of our concerted efforts to correct the issue over the last couple decades, because the vast majority of atheists would think they're only agnostics with no support base against the religious rights infringements against them. That and some of our national organizations would have to change their names, like to American Non-Theists. Now, I'm not going to go through the rest of this article because this video has gone way over. But I think it's very important for you to understand. I can prove to you scientifically that these guys are trolls, that they target people, they start stuff, and then they try to gain from the drama. But the most, I'd say, worrisome part of their existence is that they don't just go around doing it for drama's sake. They do it to either attack a woman for being brave enough to call them out for their behavior, to attack Kyle Curtis and try to steal his show, the Non Sequitur Show, or like they're doing to Aron Ra, because he is teamed up with Christian apologists like S.J. Thompson and that Dr. Fuzz Rana, or whatever his name is, that is the Agree to Argue, and he's teamed up with them since this happening with Aron. And personally, I do think that it's why he attacked Aron back then, and he's doing it again now, because those two have the agenda that is aided, that is boosted, that is made greater. Their agenda, the Christian apologist agenda, is made better by attacking Aron Ra. That's my point. 1, Aron Ra didn't make the positive claim that rocks are atheist on Twitter, and they haven't shown that he made it anywhere else either. 2 is that these guys are attacking him over it, while their leader, the man who instructed all of them to go do this, and the man who rewarded all of them and clapped for them, and then got lots of shares by all of them when he was done, was the person who made that argument long ago. So the real rock theist, the real lack theist, was that guy making that argument that Nate Brody debunked. Just funny that he's the one leading the charge against Aron. I'm UNIRock. Make sure you subscribe to Aron Ra. Follow him on Twitter. Hit the subscribe button down below. Follow me on Twitter at UNIRocktv. And I'll see you guys soon. UNIRock. I'm going to do it wrong. I do it wrong every single time. UNIRock out. I did it right that time. Wow. Wow.